This episode of the Hotspur America podcast is dedicated to the memory of Bradley Arthur.
And naturally, I'm a Tottenham man, obviously. I can reflect back to being a player with and manager of some of the finest players that have ever been in the game.
The place is fantastic, the tradition of this club.
To be the manager of 3 cup-winning teams here, I'm so lucky, it's untrue.
Hotspur America podcast, airing every week during the English Premier League season.
What a glory, glory night at White Hart Lane.
This great and historic football club.
Joyful night down the Tottenham High Road.
Hotspur America, the original US-based podcast dedicated solely to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club.
Gascoigne going to have a crack. He is, you know. Oh, I say! Schoolboy's own stuff.
I hate Arsenal, just hate them.
Oh, what a goal! Unbelievable! Wow, this is incredible.
We're the Yids in America.
Dukes is there to tap in. What a fantastic run. He scored, and it's turned home. Eric Dyer.
This is your Hotspur America. Hello again, everybody. Episode 20, we've made it this far. Season 1, the Hotspur America podcast, coming off of a little bit of a downer. The Burnley match, we ended up with a draw, and of course yesterday dealing with the decisions, I guess you could say, that led to a 1-2 defeat to Palace. All is wrong in the world for Spurs fans, and Rebecca Lowe is happy. As we all know, she's a Palace fan. We'll talk Palace today. That match, transfer window updates, the Anthony Taylor refereeing decisions. Did they really play a part? Is it one of these things where what goes around comes around, and karma will find its way back to treat Spurs nice? We're also going to talk about the Spurs poet, Davey. Big event coming up for him involving Steve Perryman, and a book review from Simon and the gang here, the biography of Tottenham Hotspur, the Bible for Spurs fans, written by the one and only Miss Julie Welch. But before we get into all that, we have Simon and we have Sam. Gentlemen, how are you?
A bit
not as excited as me. Yeah.
No, there's no that. Oh, you're a bit excitable today. No, I'm Spurs sick. I'm pretty well and good Spurs sick. You, Dottie, Chairman? About the same?
Yeah, you ranted earlier this morning about how sick you still were, and I made my references to Steve Wright in the afternoon and angry from Pearly. I'm so angry I'm gonna slam down the phone.
Oh God! So, why is it that when we have we have this window, right? This moment to seize the day, we just consistently cock it up, and we did yesterday. I mean, referee decisions aside, we should have battered them. We should have absolutely battered them.
We should be doing to them what Arsenal did to Stoke, and
that's what rubbed it in for me. That's what really did me in today. Like, I woke up feeling pretty shit, and then I get done with church, and then I go see that 3-0 score, and it just put me into a tailspin. So that's when I started firing off those texts like I'm going to end my life, and
What's the point of living?
That's the way it should be. I mean, we should have, but I went back. And I shouldn't have done this, but I think since September 24th or maybe October 24th, they've won one match, and their 2 best players weren't even in the squad. So,
and this is, however you want to say it, this is the new manager effect, isn't it?
Well, you nailed it, Chairman. You nailed it.
The players that normally don't play for anything will play out their ass when they get a new manager, and of course, we ran right into the eye of that storm.
I don't like him either. He's such a smarmy guy.
He's just smug.
He really is. Like, with the Walker handball, I must have replayed that about 5 times. He wasn't even in the box anyway, and just watch how he carried. Well, you know what? He's passionate. That's actually kind of his. He had a good bit of success there, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And he scored a very famous goal there for Palace.
The 1990 FA Cup semi-final. Yeah. He scored the winning goal, knocking Liverpool out, putting them in the final against United, which they should have really won that in the first game, but went to a replay and they lost. But a lot of people don't remember, he was also on the Intertoto side that lost 8-0 to Cologne. So that's a very, very, very little known fact. It
was just one match for us, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's officially our heaviest defeat, although people like to refer to the 7-0 bashing from Liverpool in the 78-79 season. but that was the heaviest one, and I don't think Spurs gave it any credit whatsoever for that tournament. But Pardew was in that side.
And was that really his only appearance for the club?
I can't vouch one way or the other on that. I just know that he was in that game.
All right,
I find it hilarious, and I hate the guy as much as you. And he almost got the sack. Let's look at the season for him. He almost got the sack with Newcastle. He won a game. I think it was their first game of the season at home. Leicester. What happened the following week? They came to the lane, and we all know how that ended.
Yep.
So I had been looking at a lot of predictions Thursday and Friday, and not many pundits were giving us the win, and I think they were looking at the new manager factor. We saw it last week for both Pulis and for Pardew in the FA Cup. Granted, they were both playing non-league sides, and they both won 4-0 and 7-0 respectively. But the big test for both of them was their Premier League debuts, and we all saw what happened earlier in the day with Pulis. They got the 1-0 win.
Yeah.
It's Hull, and I just had this nagging feeling that it wasn't going to be a day. We didn't start off too well. The first half kind of resembled a bit of the first match at the Lane in December. And so I was pleasantly surprised, as I think we all were, when Harry popped up and did what he seems to be doing a lot of recently. But I think the Stambouli penalty clearly turned the game on its head. We'll talk about the refereeing decisions in a minute, but that point on, and I think I've reading reports of the match afterwards, heads dropped. We felt hard done by. And I think that's where we're missing a captain in the midfield to lift the team, because it's not easy for the goalkeeper to do. And again, we've mentioned this before. Good captains come from the midfield. Look at who we've had: Perryman, Mackay, Mabbott at times. After Perryman, and Blanchflower and Mullery. These have been midfield captains that have bossed the game, and even Ledley, when he was in the back four, he would always play forward. And his voice was very, very well heard. And Dawson, and I know there's a lot of people on the fence with Dawson, but the captain for me. I love Lloris, no disrespect, but he shouldn't be it shouldn't be the goalkeeper wearing the armband, and I just didn't see us stepping up the play a little bit. I think when they went 2-1 up, but it was too little too late, and we couldn't do what we've done so far this season, because I think it's that late in the game for us that it is hard for any team to overcome that kind of situation in the game. If we'd found ourselves a goal down, could we have gone on to win it? Maybe. So the boot was on the other foot to some degree, but we'll bring up our wonderful referee Anthony Taylor in a little bit, I'm sure. Yeah,
and it was kind of apropos. We were just having our first sips of a pint right before the match started, and the camera panned over to Punchin, and you just kind of made a little cheeky remark about, I wonder if that ball's still sailing. Maybe he'll send another one into the upper deck.
Oh, right.
And I turned to him and I said, watch that little son of a bitch get the winner against us. And sure enough, wouldn't you know it, I should have knocked on the table or something. But the Punchin's goal, when you go back and look at it, very fortunate. The ball bounced, I think, off of two different people. Fazio, I thought, played a remarkable game yesterday, and was in position to block every entrance and shot and cross in that you could possibly ask of him. And on that goal, he did the same exact thing. It was a short cross in from just outside the 18, bounced off his leg, and fell right to Punchin. It was just very unfortunate. Kudos for him for slotting it away. Hugo had no chance. And of course, the penalty, keepers never have a chance. They have to guess right. And you never know what's going to happen.
He knocked the cover off that on that.
Yeah, and there was more than one time. I remember it happened to Rose a couple of times and Walker, but it was Simon. We were watching the game sitting next to one another, and it was like, what a time to slip. Well, replace your divots. It looked like they were playing golf out there with as much as the turf was coming up. It reminded me very much of when we were having our European tie. I think it was against Besiktas, when their pitch was absolutely spongy and very soft like that. And I don't know if they had recently replaced some of the turf at Selhurst or whatever the case was.
I think they said they had just resurfaced. I don't know when, but that I heard that in the match.
Yeah, and
Well,
of course both teams have to play on it, but it was awful.
But
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it, Sam, that the goal really stemmed from Christian Eriksen just being bundled off the ball.
Yeah, it did. It
Possession,
actually
and then
did.
it came back from their left.
Very much so, and I think forget about the poor decisions, and there were plenty, but we were unimpressive, it really stemmed from the fact that we were relatively weak, and Eriksen really had a bit of a disappointing game. I mean, whereas he was sort of he's been a rat and running all over the place and winning a lot of balls, he got his foot on a lot of balls, but never really retained possession in a lot of key places, and that second goal was one. And then, if you remember, down in the corner, I mean, Zaha abused him and Walker.
Once he came on, he did make an impact. And
he really did. He's a good player. He's a very good player. But I just really felt like our sort of unimpressive performance really came from the fact that we weren't really winning balls. We weren't really commanding in the midfield, and we didn't really distribute it well. After winning, key possessions, and that for me was about it. I thought defensively we were okay. They weren't terribly threatening. Yeah, I thought Fazio was pretty good, but I thought Dembele not diving for. He turned his back on that shot that punched.
Yes,
and was slated by Graham Roberts on Twitter for it. He called him out, flat out called him out on that on Twitter.
I just don't understand why. I mean, that wasn't. You dive there. You dive into the ball.
That harkened back to Paulinho and
I thought of the exact
free
same
kick
from door.
Was it Downing against West Ham?
Yep.
Yeah, and both looking at each other.
Yeah.
Like who was more pathetic.
But it's interesting when that ball was played through, because I mentioned that Ken, what were the defenders doing so close to Lloris? But obviously the touch off Fazio is what brought it out to punch him, because it was going to go through the 6-yard box, and they were well placed. And it's an unlucky touch from Fazio because he hadn't put a foot wrong really in that game. And we talked about the Fazio Vertonghen partnership again, but now they've had their second defeat in that run. However, we need to Monty Python this, always look on the bright side of life. We got a big match coming up, so let's talk. We'll come back to the refereeing decision, but let's talk about Burnley away and now home. No television coverage either in the UK.
How can that be?
This is what it's like, I think, to be a Spurs fan over there on the other side of the pond. Because I hear all the time about, we're not going to get all the games this week. We have to go to watch it somewhere else, or we're going to have to listen on the radio. And I'm like, how do you guys not have all these games? And we get to watch everything, and we're so spoiled from it that when we don't get it, we bitch and moan like a bunch of petulant children, as we should.
Well, I sent out a tweet earlier in the week that reminds me of when I was a kid. This is how it was. Yeah. Wouldn't get a result till the end of the day. It was reported on Match of the Day, or got on the radio, but yeah, for all the belly aching about the FA Cup has lost its luster. Yeah. Well, they don't help themselves by not televising and hardly being able to find even a stream. Yeah. In fact, I couldn't find one for the last.
You know what it was? No. I knew that going into that match, and they knew days before, even up till Sunday. Burnley hadn't sold any tickets for that match. Only 6,000 tickets had been sold for the entire match, and a third of those were Spurs fans. And we saw the end, the sections that they had Spurs fans in, and it was absolutely jam-packed. And kudos for our road support, which is undoubtedly one of the best road support groups of fans in the entire Premiership, if not all of Europe.
Yeah, we're taking 5,500 to Sheffield United, completely oversubscribed our allotment. In fact, they released more tickets. So that alone is representative of how well the Spurs fans travel. And let's not forget that there was, we heard it last week, that there was a lot of brouhaha about the fact that this was being played on a Monday night and there were no last trains, so the club put on coach service for the fans, which, again, when people are ready to bash Tottenham for doing this, that and the other, when they do that for the fans, that's phenomenal, and that's why we should be proud Lily White. So but yeah, let's talk a little bit about this Burnley game.
They're in form.
What are your thoughts? Yeah, absolutely, they're in form. They beat QPR, but let's face it, QPR have lost all 10 of their Premier League games to be the first ever team to do that in the Premier League.
Yeah, who scored for them in that match, eh? A certain Danny Ings, did he?
Yeah, certain Danny Ings.
Mm-hmm.